Chapter 2 I Dream of Dragons. The graduation ceremony was everything May wanted. The black silk robes with the golden trim, the solemn march with her fellow apprentices through the winding garden with its vibrant flowers and songbirds, to finally be permitted to enter Founder's Keep as a mage. It was all she had dreamed of, and so much more. It was too bad that they could not hold weddings within the great gathering hall. The light streamed through on all sides from the stained glass window and created a breathtaking bouquet of warm colors that sparkled on the polished white quartz floor. It was supposed to be a happy day. It had been happy. For years, she had stared up at Founder's Keep from her cramped dormitories. But now, at long last, she was accepted into the eight-sided Star Fortress as a true mage. Her instructors that had once scolded and corrected now embraced her like family. Soon she would be expected to choose her craft. The most popular choice was to be an elemental mage. They were typically field mages who went on missions for Founder's Keep or worked with the military on campaign. To be an elemental, you had to be quick and precise caster. Elementals didn't always have to be the most powerful. They just had to be faster than anyone else in a wartime situation or mage duel. Weather mages, in contrast, were expected to be powerful and have the longest reach, allowing them to control weather patterns in local regions. The other six were fairly self-explanatory: alchemy, nature, engineers, menders, telepaths, and dragon riders. May already knew what she wanted. She had wanted it ever since she was a girl. Ever since she had seen those great, powerful, leathery wings fly overhead. She stopped and watched every time the dragon riders flew past. She wanted to be one. She wanted it more than anything. Every passing minute of every day, she had her nose in a dragon book, both academic and fantasy. She had only met one other person more in love with dragons than she was. She found Ben to be very strange. Ben was bigger than most mages. If he had not been wearing the apprenticeship robes, she would have assumed that it was one of the guards sneaking books out of their library. Ben's deformed ears were always a mystery to her. They weren't ugly, just abnormal. Well, not that abnormal, just not normal for a mage. Lots of guardians and their recruits had ears like that. Supposedly, it was a common injury from boxing or grappling. Being a mage required more will and mental prowess than physical strength. May wondered if she had the physical strength, if she would have naturally preferred it over magic. She didn't really understand the allure of having fun while being punched in the face by your friends. The thought was so alien to her. Even if she could pass the strength and conditioning trials and beat all those sweaty meatheads up with their own wooden practice swords, she still wouldn't enjoy it. Not like they did. They seemed to be having fun even when they lost. May could see herself finding brawling with their fists mildly entertaining, but only if she was winning. She hated losing. But Ben seemed to be just as at home in the library as he was in the sparring yard. In a strange way, this made May like him even more. It also gave her an excuse to practice her mending abilities on him. She wasn't very good at it, but she could mend a few bruises. This, of course, was not enough to be accepted into the Mender's Hall. Unfortunately, Ben was 2 years ahead of her. May wished he could see her now. She was envious of him. She wondered what it was like in Dragon Hall. She wondered if he had already become a dragon rider, or if he had been restationed someplace else. She hoped not. She had dreamed of what his dragon would look like. They would go flying away together and have quiet moments on the sparkly, snowy ridges, staring up at the northern aurora dancing across the stars in its beautiful ribbons of elemental flames. Well, dragon riders were technically part of Founder's Keep and had a spot at the Great Assembly. Dragon Hall proper was annexed quite the distance away from the actual school grounds itself, and was strictly off limits to anyone except the overseer, who was in charge of the school of apprentices and all the mages in Founder's Keep. Founder's Keep housed 7 different magic disciplines, but the Hall of Dragons was truly unique, as anyone could join it. Sort of. The waiting list was long, but mages and soldiers with military experience were put to the top of the list. There was just one problem. She hadn't told her family yet. After all the excitement was over, and everyone sat at the large family dinner table, the dreaded question was asked. The pleasant chime of a silver butter knife against a crystal wine glass cut through the laughter and side chatter and brought everyone's attention to Mauve, May's mother. "Your father and I are dying to know what craft you're going to choose to occupy yourself in." All fell silent. Even the kids at the children's table stopped what they were doing and turned to look at her. Stalling for time, May dabbed her lips with her napkin before putting it down in her lap. Her hand nervously clutched at the silver nautical star pendant as she cleared her head. Sensing his daughter's distress, Alfred, a large, heavy-set man, let out a hearty laugh. "My dear, take your time. No need to rush. No need to decide before we have some cheesecake. What? He chuckled. "Hear, hear," chimed her brother. May took in a deep breath. She would have to tell them eventually. It wouldn't be right disappearing for so long without telling anyone where she was going. The Hall of Dragons was not an easy endeavor. It would be like first-year novice all over again, but only worse and for longer. "I have decided," she declared. She paused and took another deep breath. The tension in the air was palatable. She braced herself for the deafening silence to follow. "The Hall of Dragons," she said at last. Mauve's smile fell. Her white-gloved hand clutched at her pearl necklace, staring at her daughter if she had just sprouted a second head. It took a few moments for her to recover, but once she realized her daughter had been sincere, she jerkily rose from the table. "Excuse me," she whispered. Hoping to ease the tension, Alfred cleared his throat and reached toward the glass of wine. "Yes, the Dragon Hall is a very prestigious, very brave lot," he remarked, though it was quite apparent he was not entirely happy about the news. May understood why her mother was so upset. Her brothers had died serving as dragon riders. May was actually a little surprised at how well her mother had taken it. She had really thought she would just fly off the handle, and Mauve turned around. Her face was beet red, and her eyes were full of tears. "It would have been better if you joined the common infantry. Why not chase after the horse carts and shovel dung while you're at it?" she shrieked. "Darling, darling," Alfred tried to console her, but she would not be consoled. "How could could you do this? How could you throw away all of your talents? Mauve demanded. I'm not throwing them away. I can still do magic. I'll still be a mage. There's a lot of dragon riders who are both, she shot back angrily. You think it's that easy? You think it's just because you're a mage they'll just give you a dragon, her mother scoffed. No, they shave your head, you wear gray, and you work until you either quit, die, or prove yourself worthy, May thundered back. May, your hair! You can't cut your hair! I won't allow it! May shot to her feet and defiantly ripped off her pointed blue graduation hat, revealing her cropped, fuzzy head. It hadn't been easy to cut off her rich, wavy, chocolate brown hair, but somehow it felt more gratifying doing it herself than sitting down and being scalped by the barbers at the hall. Mauve swooned, and the servants rushed forward to catch her before her head bounced off the floor. Oh dear, Alfred sighed as his wife was hauled out and glanced about the table. Where's that cheesecake? Ah, there it is. Cheesecake, anyone? Anyone? He asked. May shakily reclaimed her seat and glanced about the table. She wanted to leave, but she refused. It was her party after all, and she was determined to have a good time, or at least not go crying off into her room. If she couldn't stand up to her mother, she wasn't ready to be a dragon rider. I donated my hair to charity, May added pointedly. She refused to simply be guilted or bullied into an off-topic, non-offensive rabbit trail about the weather. The awkward, non-eye contact continued until finally her Uncle Marley chimed in. For shame! Why give it away to strangers? You could have given it to me, he exclaimed in mock outrage as he pointed to his bald head. This got a few chuckles and lightened the mood, at least enough for her friends to stay a bit longer and resume polite conversation. She did her best to entertain them, but her mind and heart was already in Dragon Hall. Chapter 3. Come one, come all, to Dragon Hall. It was still dark when May was dropped off outside the city gate, but the sky was clear and the starlight was so bright the winding cobblestone road that led up to Founder's Keep shimmered like a silver ribbon. Even though she had already been initiated as an apprentice mage, Dragon Hall had their own rules. If May had chosen to go to any of the other 7 guilds, she would have been welcomed with open arms, showered with gifts and warm hugs, mentored and treated like family. This was not so in Dragon Hall. Recruits had to come with their heads shaven and dressed in worn-out gray clothes, and carry a written will and detailed instructions as to where to send their burnt-up, mangled bits and what was left of their meager wages. May felt awkward. She wondered what everyone would think of someone like her stepping off a nice carriage in the dirtiest gray rags she could find. She had been so embarrassed that she had insisted that she be dropped off further away. Howbeit, she regretted it as soon as she found that she would not have been the only one, and could have saved herself a good bit of walking. What was worse, she was now behind the growing line she had hoped to get ahead of. Dragon Hall only had so much space, and their quota would be filled quickly. While anyone could apply to Dragon Hall, not everyone got in on their first try. May knew of many who had applied 8 or more times before they were finally accepted, only to come running back to Founder's Keep a few months later. On the positive side, Dragon Hall was always looking for more cheap labor. On the negative side, only 1 of 1,000 would ever actually get to ride a dragon. But this didn't bother May. She knew over half of the people wanting to join would be satisfied just to have the opportunity to see a dragon up close, and the others would be weeded out by the strict, humiliating rules and back-breaking work. May felt confident she would make it, just so long as she didn't get injured, sick, or die. But May wasn't worried about that. She'd already made it through Founder's Keep, and magic wasn't safe either. It could kill or maim just as quickly as any dragon could, and she was already accustomed to chores, polishing floors, cleaning pots, and strict rules piled on top of long hours of study. While mages had the advantage in the application process, they could be turned away just like anyone else. Luckily, May had the advantage of reading all things dragons, including personal memoirs and accounts from current living dragon masters to the legends of old. Although she had never met them personally, May already knew about most of the dragon riders she'd be going in front of by name. May knew all this from 2 primary sources: Hidden in the Clouds, a biography and personal observation of cloud formations by Adar Solston. May had seen his likeness painted in the library. She would recognize his distinguished gray, peppered beard and thoughtful smile anywhere. His portrait, she found out later, was from Master Warren. Warren was such a colorful, funny man, she couldn't wait to meet him. His book, I Dream of Dragons, was so much more entertaining than Magi Solston's. Warren had lived life as a circus acrobat before running away to Dragon Hall. Warren was also an artist, and his paintings and maps were the best in the world. Warren boasted of having a perfect memory and could draw anything to the finest detail if he just saw it once. May wasn't sure if he was embellishing or not. In the book he was always the hero and bragging how he saved everybody. Then again, if she was going to write a book, she was pretty sure she would leave out all the embarrassing things about herself as well. Even though Warren's adventure stories of how he became a dragon rider weren't academic or scientific read like Magi Solston's book, she found it wildly entertaining and included it among the small stack of books in her pack. Naturally, she took Magi Solston's book, and the 3rd book she packed was Think Like a Dragon, Psychology 101 by Magi Glaudenmeyer Orsbin. May had strategically packed those books as she knew during the interview process she would be submitted to a search of her personal belongings, and she would be judged partially by her answers and by what she had packed. Nothing would be sacred at all, and if she made a word of protest, she would be dismissed and sent away without anything. Warren had been selected because of his drawings. While May wasn't the best artist, she had borrowed some of her sister's sketches and crammed a few art supplies as well. May promised herself that once she was accepted, she would begin practicing every day from that point onward. Besides, she wasn't actually going to lie. If she was asked, she would merely look down and shuffle her feet and let them decide if they were hers or not. So technically, it wasn't really a lie. Not really. And besides, after going through all this trouble of shaving her head and walking all this way, May couldn't stand even the thought of being sent back. She had to get in. May groaned as she shuffled behind what seemed an endless line of bald heads. She knew if she could just get to the interview, she would be accepted. She felt knots twist in her stomach as a horrible thought of having to walk all the way down the mountain and then wander around the house like a ghost with her bald shaven head while her mother constantly pricked and pried at her. May wondered if she could go and stay in the cramped apprentice dormitories at Founder's Keep, or hide away under the stairs and try to sneak out into the dining hall to get some food, just so she wouldn't have to go back home. She still had her apprentice uniforms. Yes! It seemed like a wonderful idea, until she realized that those were at home as well. "Watch out!" called a boy from behind her. May gasped and quickly stepped out of the way as several carriages rumbled on past. "Hey! Those people are cheating!" she exclaimed. The boy behind her shrugged. "Yep, somebody always does," he chuckled. May grimaced. Secretly, she wanted to kick herself for not trying to pull a few strings herself. Perhaps even arrived a day prior and sneak out from Founder's Keep. Loud, thunderous shouts arose and were shortly followed by the chorus of boos that rippled down the mountainside. May gasped. Later, she spotted the sobbing, shamed-faced youths walking barefoot down the mountain as they were pelted with rotten eggs and vegetables. May clasped her hands over her mouth when she spotted a girl that she had graduated with follow after him. No mercy or special treatment was given to the young girl. She walked barefoot and was topless, and her back was red from lashings just like everyone else. May turned to the young man behind her. "What happened?" "It's 8 lashings if you get caught cutting in line, and then you have to walk down barefoot and naked," he explained. May swallowed hard. Thankfully, her fears of not getting a chance to an interview began to look a little less bleak. As she watched the trickle of heavy heads and downcast-faced applicants glumly drag their feet as they began the long trek back down the mountain. Thankfully, no one booed or threw anything at them. It was hard for her not to feel sorry for them, as it was evident that they had tried many, many times. Some hid their faces in their shirts so no one would see them cry. As she neared the top, May could now see the large blue tent outside the gatehouse. It was precisely how Master Warren had described it in the book. Warren had even mentioned that she could see the gate that led to the sparring yards where the sword companions trained. While she couldn't see them, she could hear the smack and crack of wooden swords being hit together. As she approached the big tent, she bit her lower lip wordily. Out of hundreds that had applied, she saw less than 10 excited and very nervous recruits standing off to the side, staring up at Dragon Mount. "Next!" Another recruit ran out of the tent crying. May clutched her bag of belongings and held her breath as she walked inside. In front of her was a table of 4 very grim-faced dragon riders wearing matching black and dark blue checkered tunics. May immediately recognized Cora from Warren's book. She was thin and wiry, and her frazzled graying hair looked like a briar patch sprouting out from the top of her head. "Is there anything funny, child?" Cora demanded. May wilted, and her smile melted away, and she quickly shook her head. "What's your name?" asked a young woman with a long, dark ponytail and a soft but stern voice. My name is May, she introduced herself, but the moment she did, her heart fell as Cora grinned like a shark and held up a letter. She felt her face burn red. She immediately recognized the handwriting. "Oh, Miss May Fields, I presume. Your mother sends her regards and hopes you will be well taken care of," she remarked sourly. "I'm pretty sure you're mistaking me for another May. I'm May Thatcher," she insisted. Oh, good. Now hand over the bag. We don't have all day," Cora snapped. May gulped and gave up her bag. Her eyes went big when she spotted Master Warren. Warren's face was full of gray bristles, and his long silver hair was swept back in a neat, short tail like a crafty old fox. She hadn't seen his likeness before, but she had heard so much about him, and she knew it was him because she spotted the small flecks of different colored oil paints on his hands as he reached out and dumped all of her things onto the front of the table. "Oh, adorable! Look at this!" Cora remarked as she picked out her graduation star and held it up toward Irene. May beamed proudly. She was about to boast about all of her high marks when her hero, Master Warren, scowled in disgust. "Oh, great! Another wizard," he scoffed. Cora chucked the star into the fire pit. "I bet she thinks she's special," she sneered. May felt like she was going to burst into tears at any moment, but she knew if she did, the interview would be over. "These books look expensive," Irene remarked. "That's adorable. Tell me, did you come to read or to work?" Cora demanded. May swallowed hard. She knew if she said to work, Cora would toss him into the fire, and if she said to read, she'd be sent away. "To work, Magi Cora," she replied. Cora's bright white teeth curled into a cruel grin, but then she hesitated. "And how do you know my name, child?" she queried. May pointed to the stack of books that hovered perilously close to the burn pit. "Magi Solston spoke very highly of you in his books, Magi," she explained. Magi Solston dropped his notepad and quickly snatched the books from Cora's hands. "Cora, you're taking things way too far. Books are for reading, not burning. What's wrong with you?" he protested, and then frowned. "Well, maybe not this one. You can burn this one," he chuckled. Cora quirked a dark brow and smiled. "Gladly," she concurred. "No!" May exclaimed in protest. By the stern frowns and looks of disapproval, she knew she was going to join the line of sobbing, bald-headed wannabes on the long, lonely walk down the mountain. "That's my favorite one. Just give them back and I'll go," she sniffed. Irene glowered at Cora and quickly snatched up the books, but before she could stuff them back into the bag, Warren reached out and stopped her. "Hey, that's my book. And look, she's an artist just like me," he exclaimed. "Huh, it doesn't matter. She failed. Give her back her things and send her off." "The rules are clear," Cora snapped impatiently. Irene bristled. "I like her, and we need people who can draw good maps," she insisted. Cora rolled her eyes. "You like everybody," she scoffed and shouted through her cupped hands. "Next!" she called, but Warren quickly objected. Hang on. We didn't even get to vote, and right now it's a tie," he insisted. "Even if it is a tie, it doesn't matter. She failed. She doesn't have what it takes. She'll never be a dragon rider," Cora scowled. Magi Solston cleared his throat. His fingers rasped softly as they glided over his coarse peppered gray goatee. With great care, he used his quill to set fresh blue ink inside the blank cream cover. "Give her a chance," he insisted. May gasped as Solston handed over the autographed book toward her. "Look at her! She's already crying!" Cora scoffed. Magi Solston's dark, stern gaze fixed on Cora, and a firm line of disapproval set upon his forehead. "You would have cried, too, if your mother had tried to sabotage you, and your graduation star was chucked into the burn pit. Burning books is a line too far. If anything, she has proven she has done a lot of research, and she knows what she's getting herself into." Warren rolled his eyes. "Come on, Cora. Give the kid a break. Whether she quits or stays, we'll be back here again anyway. And it's getting late. Everybody's hungry. Let's just hurry and finish up the quota," he insisted. "I'm a hard worker," May insisted. "I wanted to be a dragon rider ever since I could walk. I know it won't be easy. I have read all about Dragonhall. I won't quit. I promise," she vowed. Cora gave May a hard glare. "You'll quit. I'll make certain you will quit," she assured her. May stared at Irene, turned toward Warren, and then to Solston. Warren gave a somber nod of affirmation. "Now get in line before I change my mind," Solston barked. May gasped. She had never felt so scared and excited in all of her life. She hurriedly ran and stuffed her clothes into her pack and went out to join the other recruits and waited to take the long journey up to Dragon Mount. Hello, I am the author of Founder's Keep. The text and the paper book will be out on Amazon within a couple of months, either at the end of December or January, I'm guessing. The audio book, the reading was part of the process of editing. I am an independent writer. I really need your help, the audience, to share this. I could spend all my time trying to get noticed and trying to chase after publishers and agents and editors, and I don't know how to do that. But if you, the audience, by virtue of democracy, click the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and share it on the social media, and eventually I won't be a one-man band anymore, and I will be able to write more often and get more done, and who knows what will happen. Also, if you have a business and my channel is small right now, consider sponsoring me, and I will sponsor you. Also, for other writers, other independent writers, you don't have to have a big name or anything. You don't have to be famous, but just contact me and on Twitter or email me, and I will read for free one chapter, or an hour or 30 minutes. It'll be a pilot chapter, and if the audience likes it, that we could work on a bigger collaboration and possibly do a whole book or a series, and whatever. If I would get any advertising, would be happy to discuss possibly a percentage of we could split that with for a certain book, for a certain series, and. So who knows? That's a bit beyond. Right now, there's no sponsors, there's no money, there's no audience. So it's all up in the air. But with every subscription, with every like, with every positive review, that's one step closer. And I thank you so much.